As a law enforcement officer, I attest that my fundamental duty is to serve mankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all persons to ensure liberty, equality, and justice.
Welcome to Gainesville PD On Duty, the show that takes you behind the badge of the Gainesville Police Department. My name is Officer Ben Tobias, and I'm the spokesperson for the agency. On this episode, we'll be talking all things vehicles. A little later, we will discuss how traffic enforcement keeps crashes down, and we'll tell you about a recent DUI checkpoint operation. But first, you can't drive your vehicle if you don't have it because it was stolen. We have seen an increase in the number of stolen vehicle reports in the past few months with a staggering similarity. In over 90% of the vehicles stolen, the suspect has had access to the keys. We sat down with GPD Detective Sergeant Nick Ferrara to learn how to make sure your vehicle stays where you leave it.
I'm Detective Sergeant Nick Ferrara with the Gainesville Police Department. Part of my job would be investigating auto thefts. Last year, the Gainesville Police Department took approximately 270 reports for grand theft auto. That would also include motorcycles. But I will say a lot of those cases have probably been re-verified, where a lot of times either people just want to drop charges or it turns out that the car wasn't stolen but was actually misplaced. So that's not a 100% accurate number. I have to say that a majority of the thefts that we have that involve opportunists are easily preventable. To have people just lock their cars up or simply take better control of your keys, because the bad guys have to get in your car, and if you lock the door, it's difficult for them to get in there to steal it in the first place. So if you lock it, most of the time, they're not going to be able to steal it. They're going to move on to the next one. A lot of people think that cars that are stolen where a window's smashed and people get underneath the dashboard and hotwire it. I would say that's less than 1% of the cases here in Gainesville. Most of them, the bad guys already have the keys. I mean, in some cases, I read a report and it's almost like the car is delivered to the bad guy on a silver platter. I mean, I would say almost a majority of the time, the keys are left in the car, sometimes even in the ignition. It's unbelievable, but it happens. It happens weekly. So if you go into a public place, you need to know where your keys are, and you need to be able to lock them up. We've had a number of thefts from some of our apartment complex gyms to where people just put their keys in a cubby and go about their workout, and some people that usually don't live there will make their way into the gym and take your keys and walk out in the parking lot and start hitting the clicker, waiting to hear that chirp, and they'll take off in your car.
Responded to a stolen vehicle call, met with the victim, who explained she had gone to her apartment complex gym, placed her keys in a cubby, which is a common thing in gyms, to put up your small personal items, to include your keys. She noticed someone in the gym that may have taken her keys, because when she was leaving the gym, she realized her keys were no longer in the cubby. She went back to her apartment and realized her vehicle had been stolen.
You know, other things that you can do to prevent your car being targeted would be the scenario to where the initial purpose of the person going in your car was to burglarize it. So don't leave items out that are attractive to a suspect that would want to steal it, because once he's inside and starts looking through your ashtray for change or cell phones or your purse, and if he comes across your keys, well, that's an added bonus for him. If you can do things to reduce the attractiveness of entering your car to begin with, that would definitely decrease the probability of your car being stolen. I wish people would call more when they see suspicious activity. They are not wasting our time. If you see something that just doesn't look right and you feel like this person's up to no good, absolutely call GPD or call the sheriff's office, the non-emergency, or even if you think it's serious enough, call 911. Gainesville is a safe place. A lot of our auto thefts are easily preventable if people would just follow that golden rule of lock up your stuff, lock up your car, roll your windows up, and know where your keys are at all times. And a lot of these cases will be prevented.
Folks, if I've said it once, I've said it 11 million times. A majority of vehicle thefts and burglaries can be prevented if you simply take the time to lock your cars. We are making arrests and putting the bad guys in jail, but by locking your vehicles, you can help us lower our reported crimes even further. After a quick break, we visit our traffic unit to learn more about what GPD is doing to reduce crashes in our city. Don't go anywhere. Gainesville PD on duty. We'll be right back.
It's after midnight. Most likely you're asleep, safe in your home. Somebody is there, watching out for you. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. The Gainesville Police Department is on patrol.
Report of suspect attempting to enter residence.
Go ahead, 3, I'm en route.
The Gainesville Police Department. When you need us, we're there.
I will maintain courageous calm in the face of danger, scorn, or ridicule. Develop self-restraint and be constantly mindful of the welfare of others. Honest in thought and deed in both my personal and official life, I will be exemplary in obeying the laws of the land and the regulations of my department. Together, as a community, we foster order, safety, and freedom.
Welcome back to Gainesville PD on duty. Raise your hand if you've been pulled over and received a traffic ticket. Keep them up. I'm counting. Folks, I'm right there with you. I've experienced the stress, anxiety, and frustration of knowing I did something to get an officer's attention. Some folks think we conduct traffic enforcement to generate funds or because we just enjoy ruining people's days, but that's certainly not the case. Any officer that has worked a fatal or serious injury crash will tell you they conduct traffic enforcement to correct driving behaviors that lead to crashes. Sergeant Kirkow is the current supervisor over the traffic unit. Let's hear how they are working to reduce serious crashes in our city.
I'm Sergeant Summer Hallett Kirkow, and I'm currently assigned to the Gainesville Police Department Traffic Unit. The traffic unit has basically 3 prongs that we focus on, and that's traffic education, traffic enforcement, and then traffic fatality investigations. Some of the biggest concerns we have when investigating fatal crashes are speeds, distractions, and alcohol. Distracted driving is probably our #1 contributing factor to these crashes. There's so many bells and whistles in the cars now that are supposed to make your commute easier, but sometimes they can prove to be more of a distraction, in addition to our cell phones, our iPads, whatever it is, that draws your attention away from paying attention to what's going on around you and in front of you while you're driving your vehicle.
Distracted driving is the most dangerous thing that has crept into our lives. It's replaced intoxicated driving. You put those two together, that's a lot of preventable accidents, and that means property damage as well as lives.
We shouldn't text and drive. That's a big thing. You can text if you're sitting stationary, but you're not supposed to while you're actually in motion of the vehicle, because in a second things can absolutely change. The car in front of you slams on the brakes because you're following too closely, or maybe they're paying attention and the child has run out in the street and then you've rear-ended them. We as adults and licensed drivers have to be more responsible and more cognizant of what's going on around us, and that includes watching out for these children in our school zones and in the crosswalks.
Unfortunately, people in Gainesville do not stop for the kids when they're waiting at the crosswalk. People just ignore them. And when people speed through the zone, the kids are stuck in the middle. And when they speed through my zone, sometimes it takes 3 cars crossing or passing by me before I can get them to stop.
You know how kids get distracted and they see something shiny or something cool and they want to run to it, or they've dropped something in the road, or they're just not paying attention. And so as adults, we need to take up that slack and make sure that we're watching out for the kids, because they may not be watching out for themselves.
They're speeding to a red light. And really, it says at Westwood 20 miles per hour, but that's the speed limit. Like, go 15, go slow.
Depending on the speed that you're going, just a few miles over what you think is a normal correction, and it would be a normal correction if you were going the speed limit and it wouldn't have that much effect, a minor correction can turn into a major disaster. You think you're turning the wheel just a little bit and then coming back into your lane, and you're really forcing the car through momentum and inertia and physics further out, and then now we're into all kinds of other issues that you're going to face. There's all kinds of things, and so your window of reaction is much smaller and your window of error is much larger the higher in speed that you go.
A traffic homicide investigation is conducted anytime that there's been a motor vehicle collision that has resulted in either a traffic fatality or serious bodily injury. We'll show up at the time the collision occurred. The roadway is going to be shut down for several hours. And that's so that we have, as investigators, we have the time to thoroughly evaluate everything as it's found.
And what we're looking for are skid marks. We're looking for gouge marks in the pavement. We're looking for mechanical errors or failures on the vehicle. Your debris field, if we have the driver that does a hit and run and they fled the scene and we can't talk to them, we can look at a debris field and we can determine direction. We can also determine speeds when we do these amazing calculations with more letters and numbers in them, and we can determine based on where debris lands, how fast things are traveling. Get search warrants if we have to download the black boxes in the cars, which will give us all kinds of valuable information. We also look at whether or not these crashes were alcohol or drug related. So this is where some of our voluntary and involuntary blood draws come into effect, and we'll look at those results. And then we'll also go back and find out, did they sleep that day? What did they have to eat? When was the last time they ate? Had they been working? Had they been around some kind of noxious fumes? Anything that can impair them or contribute to that crash. We're gonna look into all of that.
Once we've identified all important facts and items on scene, we're going to begin to document it by photo and or video first, and then we're going to mark it with our orange paint for future reference at the time that a scene is to be mapped with our mapping system.
We'll go out and we'll map the location using laser mapping. We will draw a diagram to scale. So the diagrams that you get in your regular crash reports are not to scale.
The physical evidence on scene is irrefutable, and the mathematical formulations are sound. They've been around for many years, dare I say decades.
We could even go so far as to, if someone disputes that somebody didn't have their lights on, and the other party says, yes, I did have my lights on, we can actually pull those bulbs out of the headlights or the tail lights, and we can determine if they were on, if they were off. We have people who are ejected from cars, and so we don't know who the driver is, we don't know who the passengers are. We can actually look at the injuries and put them back in the locations inside the car based on injuries and damage inside the vehicle. So the science of it all is just amazing, and it's the classes that they had that we go to just never cease to amaze me about how we can put these pieces back together. We're going to be partnering with Florida Highway Patrol, the Alachua County Sheriff's Office, High Springs Police Department, Alachua Police Department, and the University of Florida Police Department. And we're going to be concentrating those areas and those issues that each agency has, and maybe we have collectively, to help with traffic enforcement and traffic education. And ultimately what we want to do is to bring the number of crashes in the city and the county down, in addition to greatly reducing our fatality rate.
When it comes to traffic fatalities, any number other than 0 is just unacceptable. So we need to set our goal to what we know it should be, and then do everything we can to try to achieve that figure.
It's never a good day when we as investigators have to make that notification to a parent in South Florida or a parent out of the state. I mean, we've even had to notify parents in China, across the country, into Canada, wherever it is, to make that notification to any parent. It's just devastating, and it's the part of the job that I absolutely hate.
Yeah, I had to tell this woman that her son died in a motorcycle crash at 3 a.m. I can't imagine what it was like to have that wake-up call. And it's an emotional event for everybody involved. I know a lot of people see police officers as robots and we don't have feelings and or emotions, but it's not an easy thing to deliver that message.
So we just need to pay attention, because as licensed driver, as the controller of that vehicle and the damage that they can do if it's not maintain within the laws and the speed limits can just be devastating. And maybe it's not devastating to you, but it could be devastating to another family.
Folks, I'll admit it to you right now. I too have found myself as a distracted driver. I understand that there are so many things that take our attention away from driving, but please remember that we are controlling over a ton of metal that can take away someone's life in an instant. Please join me as we all become safer drivers. After a break, we'll finish the episode with a look at a recent DUI checkpoint. Gainesville PD on duty. We'll be right back.
I actually don't remember anything from the accident. Crossing the intersection of 13th Street and 39th Avenue, and a truck pulled out in front of me. Wearing all black also doesn't help, so I was wearing all black. I had a son behind me. My head went full force into the hood of the truck that pulled out in front of me. I would definitely not be here if I hadn't been wearing a helmet. I would still ride again, but I would ride knowing that I risk my life every time I get on the bike. I think everyone should know that.
I will never act officiously or permit personal feelings, prejudices, animosities, or friendships to influence my decisions. With no compromise for crime and with relentless prosecution of criminals, I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately, without fear or favor, malice or ill will, and never employing unnecessary force.
Welcome back to Gainesville PD on duty. Gainesville police officers are constantly looking for ways to reduce the number of drunk drivers on the road. We aggressively stop and arrest these drivers as we can, but we unfortunately can't catch them all. From time to time, we will utilize roadside safety checkpoints to deter and identify impaired drivers. Our most recent checkpoint was conducted just after the first of the year and was aptly named Operation Resolutions.
Operation Resolutions. We chose that name because it was after the first of the year, and we thought maybe we could help some people make some better decisions in 2018 and maybe make some resolutions not to drink and drive. We were checking for driver's license to make sure that we had licensed, valid drivers on the road, but then we are also checking to see if there were any impaired drivers that came through our line. Public Works was kind enough to come out and help us set up the cones and the signage and everything. And so cars will funnel into the checkpoint line, and they'll be approached by a law enforcement officer. The drivers are asked just to see their driver's license and their registration papers, stuff like that. We do a check of it. We do a visible check of the car to make sure that, we don't have any cracked windshields, that we have tag lights that are working and that sort of thing. But then we also have a conversation with the drivers to see if they're showing any signs of impairment. If everything's fine, the car and the driver and the occupants are moved on through the checkpoint and then go on about their business. If we have any questions about the driver and if they are showing signs of impairment, we will remove that driver from the car. We will not let that person drive that car anymore. We will move the vehicle into a safe area, and then that person is turned over to one of our DUI specialists, and they're put through the field sobriety exercises. So as a result of our enforcement efforts, we wrote 23 citations. We had 2 narcotics arrests and 3 DUI arrests. One of the individuals that was arrested for DUI almost caused a crash within the checkpoint line, which is very dangerous for the other drivers that are in there, but it's also very dangerous for us as officers standing out in the road. Then about 15 minutes before the checkpoint was concluded, we had an individual that came at a high rate of speed westbound on University Avenue, came over the top of the hill and took out about 6 barricades before we could get the car stopped and he could be removed from the car. DUI enforcement is important to me personally. Every day I wear this bracelet and it has the name of my former lieutenant on it, Lieutenant Corey Dahlem. So Lieutenant Dahlem in 2007 was killed by a drunk driver who ignored the barricades that we had out, struck Lieutenant Dahlem. I was there when he was hit, and I was there when we made the arrest. He was such a influential person in my life. So it is very important to me, and it's important for me to do this to carry on his memory. During our Operation Resolution, we were lucky enough to have Mary Kelly Miss Kelly was the mother of Emily Cook, who in 2014 was killed in a crash with her best friend when her best friend's father decided to drive drunk with the girls in the car. I've worked a lot of these crashes, but to see 2 children involved was especially sad because it didn't have to happen. Miss Kelly is without her daughter, and her best friend's family is without her. Miss Kelly is a volunteer with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and she came out, and even as cold as it was, I think the average temperature all night was about 34 degrees, she hung out with us the whole night and just supported us, and we really appreciated it.
My name is Mary Kelly. I am a first volunteer with MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I'm also here with my organization. It's called 15 for Life. I'm here tonight to support our local law enforcement. I think it's extremely important to really focus on not drinking and driving or being under the influence of anything while driving, and how it affects not just that individual, but their loved ones and so many around them. You know, not only does this affect loved ones and their families, but this affects the law enforcement, the EMTs, our first responders. This affects them in many ways. So it's just been a great experience, and I am very thankful and honored that they have allowed me to come and observe and support them.
She saw how important it is for us to try to reduce the number of drunk driving and fatalities on the road. One of the points that you can't measure as far as success goes is the awareness that we brought to the community. The officers that we worked with all said how much fun they have. It's nice to be able to work and have just casual conversations with the community. We were averaging 178 cars through there in an hour. That's 178 people. And if there were more occupants in there, then more people that we made contact with, that we just said, hey, we're out here, we're checking up on things, we want to make sure that you're safe, and we want to take those people that aren't being safe, we want to take them off the road. If you're going to go out and have a good time, which you should, you work hard during the week, go out and have a good time. But if you've had too many, to me, there's no excuse. We have cell phones now that you can call any of your friends. You can call Lyft, you can call Uber. This is something that's so preventable. And so put your ego aside and say, you know what, maybe I've had too many, because you don't know what's gonna happen when you get in that car when you've had too much to drink. And at the low end of it, maybe you just get a DUI. But that's gonna cost you so much. It's gonna cost you monetarily. It could cost you your job. God forbid you get in and you kill somebody, kill an innocent person. So there's so many options out there. I would just implore people to call someone else, to call someone sober, and to, like I said, put the ego aside and say, you know what, today I'm gonna make the good decision. I'm gonna make the right decision. I'm gonna call someone.
Folks, we want you to have fun. We want you to be able to unwind from the stresses of life and have a good time. But please, please make sure you have a plan to get home safely after you drink. There is absolutely no excuse to drive drunk, especially when there are so many ways to get home safely. Is there something you'd like us to feature on the show? Please reach out to us via our website or social media and tell us what areas of the department you'd like to see. I'll say it again for the 11 millionth and one time. Please lock your cars and homes. Help us make criminals move along to the next target. That wraps up this episode. We'll see you again soon for another episode of Gainesville PD On Duty.
I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as public trust to be held, so long as I am true to the ethics of the police service. I will constantly strive to achieve these objectives and ideals, dedicating myself before God to my chosen profession, law enforcement.
So, you're cruising down the road and all of a sudden you spot flashing lights up ahead. Some sort of emergency vehicle. Maybe a cop car, maybe an ambulance, maybe a tow truck is stopped on the side of the road with its flashing lights on. What do? If you answered, just keep right on going. Wrong. Sorry, try again. When an emergency vehicle or tow truck is stopped on the roadside with its lights flashing, it's your job to move over or slow down 20 miles per hour below the speed limit. That's right, move over and give them some room, or slow down if you just can't change lanes. That is unless you like paying tickets, because that's just what you'll get, a big, fat ticket. So here's the deal. Keep your eyes on the road at all times and watch the road up ahead, not just what's right in front of your hood. Anytime you see an emergency vehicle or tow truck on the side of the road, move over a lane or slow down to 20 miles per hour below the speed limit. Give them the space they need to do their job safely. Hey, these folks are looking out for you, so look out for them too, will you? Move over, Florida. It's the law. A message from the Florida Highway Patrol, paid for by the Florida Department of Transportation.